Is The Expanse the best science fiction I've ever read? Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the final book in the Expanse series, Leviathan Falls by James S.A. Corey. And man, what an experience this series has been. A space opera spanning decades and multiple galaxies, Leviathan Falls is definitely one of the best science fiction books I have ever read, or series I have ever read, but is it the best? Well, let's go ahead and talk about the good and the bad, and then I will answer that question afterwards. So starting with the good of Leviathan Falls, I will just mention right off the bat that it is a good ending to the series. That is an issue that can definitely happen in a series that is this long, where, and this expansive, is that the final book may not live up to the hype or might not tie off enough loose ends. It might just fumble the bag a little bit. And fortunately for Leviathan Falls and The Expanse as a whole, that is not the case. This book really ties up most of the loose ends that I could think of at the time. There's probably something I am missing. But overall, I didn't even know what I wanted from the end. I didn't know how they could possibly end it. And fortunately, the authors did it. They did a good enough job to leave me satisfied with the series. And that was something I was worried about going into this book, because there just felt like there was so much and it was so big that I didn't know if they would be able to do it in a way that made me feel satisfied. And thankfully, they did. I was happy to see what happened with all of the crew, the decisions that were made. It's not all just like one big happy, Disney movie ending, but everything felt real, everything felt good, and I'm super happy with how it ended. With that being said, the emotions of this book are a huge positive. Like I said, it made me feel. Mostly at the very, very end of the book, it really did make me feel. You have things happening with characters we have been with through so much, to see the different things that happens and they go through and the decisions that they have to make, whether they be super, super hard, easy, character growth that is shown that I personally didn't expect with one character in particular. The emotions were definitely high at the end of this book. And, some of that just comes with being with them for so long, like I mentioned, but this late into a series with the things that are happening at the end of this book, the decisions that are made, the emotions of the characters are so high, it just felt right. And that's a hard thing to nail. Getting those emotional moments right and to not feel cheesy or, to cheat the characters themselves and have them act in a way that they, doesn't feel authentic to them. It was really well done. One of the best things that happened in this book, and I will not spoil it, this will be spoiler free, but there is a character that finally comes back that I had been waiting for a really, really long time. It's a character that I thought was going to show up in book 6, and then I was so convinced, or not book 6, book 7, and then I was so convinced that it was going to happen in book 8. And after it didn't happen in book 8, it was kind of like, well, I guess it's not going to happen. And then as book 9, Leviathan Falls went on, I was like, man, it would really make sense if this character made an appearance. And thankfully they did. It was that last little like nugget nostalgia kind of thing that I felt like I needed for the series. And it really elevated the story to get that character back at the point that they came. The last good I will mention about this book, and this is actually really for the series as a whole, is the big space stuff. And I'm saying that to just kind of be vague and not be too spoilery, but there are, big cosmic, implications and things happening. And I think that they were handled pretty well in this book. We got to see the interaction between that stuff and the humans, why things were happening, all of that stuff. And I think it was handled pretty well. There are some negatives I have with it that I'll mention when we get to the not so good, but, it's something I wanted out of the series as a whole. The middle section of the series is so different than the stuff I'm talking about now that it was something I was missing. And to get that back in these later, books 7, 8, and 9, and obviously it's prominently displayed here, is really good, with some of the characters doing the dives that they do. I really liked some of that, and some of that not so much. With that being mentioned, let's go ahead and transition to the not so good. I won't say any of it's bad, but, this is the stuff that didn't work for me as much as I would have liked it to. Let's just go ahead and start with a character that gets introduced, Tanaka. I did not need this character to be in this book whatsoever. I found her to be extremely frustrating, not only with what she is tasked with doing, how she does it, but also her self-motivation and the way she feels about why she should be doing these things. I did not like being in her head, and I know that they used her to kind of show some feelings, some very specific feelings that are going on about the changes that are happening in the galaxy's cosmos. But and that's being super vague. I hope that makes sense. But you know, some of the things she was doing just drove me so crazy, and I just didn't need that character. A lot of it felt like it was filler in the middle of the story so that it wouldn't be short. Some of the stuff that happened in the middle section of this book, it felt like filler. It felt like it didn't really need to be there. Did it build out the story? Sure. Did it show character development? Yes. Did it just kind of make the story a story? Yes. But also, I would have liked to spend more time with the big space stuff, I think, than dealing with this human interaction BS that we were kind of dealing with at this point. I was hoping we would get bigger, cosmic stuff earlier in the book than we did. And Tanaka is really the filler that kept that barrier for us. And, I'm okay with getting a point of view frustrating character, but maybe not in book 9 of this huge series. That maybe is part of it, that I just didn't want that. I would have rather have spent that time with our main crew probably. But yeah, so she is definitely going to be a huge negative for me. Tanaka wasn't the only filler stuff. I just want to mention this as its own negative, the filler that I felt was happening. Yeah, some of the middle section of this book just was like, I know where we're building to. Can we build to it faster? I don't think it was too big of a surprise where this story was going. So I think if we could have gotten there faster and not wasted time with like trying to get somebody to a certain place, that kind of stuff, I would have, felt better about it. I had some of the big cosmic stuff in the good section of this video, but I've got to mention it also in the negative. There are some kind of dream sequency kind of stuff that I can't say they're bad. I can just say that they didn't work for me because, man, it just, until very late in the book where I kind of got my feet going and understand what was happening, it was better. But some of the early dream sequence is kind of stuff that is going on just did not work for me. It confused me, and I'm more than okay with willing that maybe it just was a me thing, and that happened. Maybe I'm not smart enough to understand what was going on there, but that is something to know about this book for me, that the dream sequence stuff, I could see why people would really like it, but for me, man, it just did not work. So let's answer that question. Is this the best science fiction story I have ever read? And no, it is not, unfortunately. This was a series that was super hyped up for me. Leviathan Falls actually isn't even my favorite book in the series. I did give it a 4-star rating. I'll mention that here. But yeah, it's a really good series, but it is not my favorite. I'll talk about my favorite at some point in my channel. But yeah, would I recommend it? Yes, I'm actually going to do a whole video about if you should read The Expanse. And I said I would recommend it, but only to specific people. So I will definitely get into that at some point. I don't know when I'll do that. I will also mention that I would love to see more books in The Expanse. I think that you could do stuff way in the future from the stuff that happened. You could do stuff pre where the story started, and you could definitely, they did this with the novellas, write stories that happened during our main timeline, but just in completely different places. The novellas did that, and this is definitely a universe that I would love to see the authors come back to. But that is my review for Leviathan Falls. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.